Hi, my name is Mike Anderson from Collision Advice. Thanks for joining us for today's session called Scheduling Best Practices. We must cover antitrust and competition guidelines. In today's workshop, we will not discuss any issues that would violate antitrust guidelines. Surveys of prices, discounts, and costs are permissible, but only under strict guidelines and only if they are not part of a conspiracy to fix prices or to otherwise restrain trade. Now remember, the prices charged must be calculated and determined by the business owner alone. And these prices should take into account the cost of doing business and include allowances for reasonable profit. All content of this program is based on standard economic and management principles. Profit margins, labor rates, etc. used in this presentation are to be taken as examples only. And the intent of this workshop is to provide attendees with basic human resource management skills that will enable them to determine their own individual rates, profit percentages, and other operation aspects of their businesses strictly on an individual basis using generally accepted management principles. So, what about scheduling? Well, let's talk a little bit about scheduling. First of all, scheduling is one of the most challenging aspects of running a collision repair facility. And this is due to the unpredictable nature of work. You know, we don't know what kind of vehicles are going to get in an accident over the weekend or the night before Tuesday. And we don't know, how many vehicles are going to get into an accident. So there's a lot of variables, the type of job. Is it a DRP job, a non-DRP job? Is it a drivable vehicle? Is it a non-drivable vehicle? And while we have all of these problems that surround scheduling, we need to understand one clear fact, that while scheduling is difficult, it is not impossible. And we hope that in today's session, we can challenge you to think outside the box to figure out how to implement some scheduling best practices. Now, what are some of the benefits of a scheduling system? Well, first of all, when we implement scheduling and it's successful, it results in even flow. And it gives us a great balance and better use of our resources, meaning that we don't have a bottleneck in the paint shop, or we don't have a bottleneck on our frame machine, or maybe you have an aluminum clean bay that you might have a bottleneck on if you're doing a lot of aluminum cars. It also reduces our stress for everybody involved, the customer, the estimator, the CSR, the body tech, the painter. And if your technicians are flat rate or commission, it also, if you schedule properly, you'll see more consistent pay for your technicians. Gives us reduced cycle time, increased touch time, hours per day, but also, last but not least, improved profitability. I am confident that if you take what we're going to share with you today for scheduling, you will see benefits in all of these areas. One of the things I see is whenever I go to talk about scheduling is a lot of people start what-ifing. Well, Mike, what about this? What about that? The key is to build a system for the norm, not the exception. Ladies and gentlemen, you can talk yourself out of something before you ever give it a chance. Don't do that. A lot of people say, well, Mike, what about this insurance company? What about this? What about that? What about when a car gets towed in? Ladies and gentlemen, the key is to build a system for the norm, not the exception. So what I want you to do is concentrate on how you can schedule work 60% of the time, 70%, 80%, and we'll deal with that 10 or 20%, those one-offs on a case-by-case basis. Now, in my mind, there's three types of scheduling, or three types of schedules. The first is the estimate appointment. That's when we schedule somebody to come in and they need an estimate. Now, if somebody comes in without an appointment for an estimate, we certainly don't want to blow them out the door. We want to take and try to accommodate them as best possible. But we do want to try to give as much structure to our day as possible for writing estimates so we can give a better customer experience and write a more accurate damage analysis. The second type of appointment is a DRA appointment, which stands for Damage Review Appointment. And this is when somebody has an insurance estimate and we schedule them in so we can review their estimate to determine if there's going to be a major supplement needed, do we need to pre-order any parts, and how we want to triage the damage to get them scheduled in when it's a time that works for us. But last but not least, we have the drop-off appointment. This is where we focused on today. How do we schedule somebody in to drop off their vehicle so we can turn this vehicle around in a timely manner that is profitable for us, very, very minimal inconvenience for the customer, and just works for everybody involved. So again, today's presentation is on scheduling drop-off appointments. So why do you need a scheduling system? Well, let me share a story with you about a shop that I worked with. There was a guy by the name of Shane, and he had a shop and he was doing about $200,000 a month in sales. His average cycle time was 12 days. He had about a 2 to 3 week backlog of work, which all of us would love to have, but he wasn't able to take advantage of it. He said, Mike, I can't break through on this $200,000. I'm always hitting $200,000 a month. I have all this work and I just can't seem to break that number. So I said, Shane, let's go in and let's implement a scheduling system. And what we did is by practicing the things that I'm going to share with you in today's session, Shane was able to decrease his cycle time by 2 days, which is a 16% decrease. And because he had a 2 to 3 week backlog of work, we saw a direct result, whereas we decreased his cycle time, he was able to bring some of that backlog of work in sooner and turn those cars, and we saw his sales go up by 16%. So by decreasing his cycle time by 16%, from 12 days down to 10, we were able to improve his sales from $200,000 to $232,000 a month in sales. So again, assuming you have capacity, assuming that you have work, if you can get this scheduling piece dialed in, you will directly see a benefit from your sales increasing. So what did we do at Shane's shop? Well, the first thing we did was we needed to gather some data. So what we did is for 1 month, we tracked how many cars Shane took into his shop on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And then what we did is we watched and we observed and we tracked data on how many cars he delivered Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And what we saw is that Shane took in 1 month, and this was the month of January, he took in 31 cars in on a Monday. He brought 22 cars in on a Tuesday, 22 on a Wednesday, 13 on a Thursday, and 7 on a Friday. But when we looked at his deliveries, we saw he was only delivering 10 cars on a Monday, 13 on a Tuesday, 21 on a Wednesday, 22 on a Thursday, and 31 on a Friday. If we were to take this and draw this as a chart, here's what it looked like. You'll see that the blue line equates to how many arrivals, how many cars he brought in during that month, and the green line is how many vehicles he delivered. And when you look at these, you saw they were opposite. We did not bring in the same amount and deliver the same amount every day. He brought all these cars in on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, less cars Thursday and Friday, but what happened was we really didn't deliver many cars until Thursday and Friday. So what happened was Monday and Tuesday was bring cars in, get them tore down, get the parts ordered, get the supplements and the estimates approved. And then all of a sudden on Tuesday it was like, okay, put cars in paint, put cars in paint, put cars in paint. And what happened was, bottom line is, it was just a lot of stress and chaos for everybody. Now I'm sure a lot of you are listening in right now in this presentation, you're thinking, my gosh, that sounds exactly like my shop. Here's the goal with scheduling. The goal with scheduling is to bring, let's just say for example, you want to do 25 cars a week. Your goal is to bring in 5 cars on Monday, 5 on Tuesday, 5 on Wednesday, 5 on Thursday, 5 on Friday, and then deliver 5 on Monday, 5 on Tuesday, and so forth. I think you get it by now. So in a perfect world, what would these two lines look like, the blue and green line? Well, I'm sure many of you right now have said they should be straight on top of each other, and you're absolutely right. We're looking for consistency. If your shop looks like this right now, I can tell you that scheduling is something that will definitely help your business. Our goal is to have that blue and green line, our arrivals and deliveries, right on top of each other. So what did we do once we saw this data? Well, we said, let's look at what some of the problems is that this is causing. And here's what we saw. We saw at Shane's shop, the painters were staying around on Monday and Tuesday with nothing to do. Staying around twiddling their thumbs because the body men were sitting there just taking cars apart Monday and Tuesday because that's when we took all these cars in and the painters had nothing to do. And now all of a sudden on Wednesday, cars start hitting paint. And what happens is, now the painters and the preppers got to stay late Wednesday night to get stuff in primer. And Thursday morning, they got to come in early and they got to try to get things painted. And then we saw on Friday, they were trying to paint cars and deliver them the same day. And now we run the risk of a body man damaging something because the paint may be soft. And because his shop's employees were hourly, we saw that his overtime affected his gross profit because his employees had to stay late to get the cars painted. Therefore, his gross profit got impacted. So again, how many of you are sitting there saying, you know what? My gosh, Mike, this sounds just like my shop. So we saw all these negatives and all these stress, all because we were loading up all these cars to come in on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, and we took in very little cars on Thursdays and Fridays. So we said, okay, let's dig into this a little bit more. Now, in this shop, they were using ProfitNet. So what we did is, when we went to this shop that was using ProfitNet, we said, let's run a cycle time load level report. So what we did is we went into ProfitNet and we went into the section of ProfitNet that said reports. We then chose the financial tab. After we chose the financial tab, we chose the cycle time load level report. And then what we did is we selected the box where it said deliver date. And we said we want to look at all the vehicles we delivered for last month. Once we selected that, it popped up and said, would you like to add additional filter conditions? And we selected yes. Now here's why we did that. Some shops might do like foil alignments, $100 an alignment, or some shops might do a lot of internal dealership work where they have a lot of $30 and $40 ROs. In ProfitNet, it gives you the ability to filter out any jobs by dollar category. So he said, look, all we want to do is see what our cycle time was by category based off of any job greater than $250. So that's why we put the $250 in, was so that we could only look at jobs greater than $250. After we selected that, we ran the report and we saw something very interesting. We saw that in ProfitNet, on the cycle time load level report, that it breaks your cycle time down into 3 categories: pre-repair, repair, and post-repair. Now, I will tell you, I go into hundreds of shops a year. I speak to thousands of people in my seminars. And I will tell you, if your cycle time is more than 9 days, you suck. Yes, you heard me say it. If your cycle time, how long it takes you to fix cars, is greater than 9 days, you suck. So I'm sorry. I'm just giving that to you in love. But I will also tell you that before you go out there and start getting on your bodymen and painters and you start telling them they need to work harder or you need to hire more techs, I would ask you to look at the administrative process. The majority of shops that I work with that have poor cycle time is not because the technicians are not working hard. It's because our administrative processes are broken. So in this case, let's look at this shop's data right here. When we ran this report in ProfitNet, we saw that their pre-repair cycle time on what we call a category 1 or an ultralight was 1 day. That means from the time the vehicle came in, so pre-repair is from the time the vehicle arrives until the technician starts on it. From the time the vehicle arrived and the technician started on it, took 1 day. On a category 2, which is a light load level, we saw that that's a category 2. The vehicle sat there from the time it arrived until the technician started on it, 1.3 days. A category 3, which was a medium, the vehicle sat for 1.2 days. And now look at this, on a category 4, a heavy load, from the time the vehicle arrived until the technician started on it was 2.6 days. And a category 5, from the time the vehicle arrived until the technician started on it was 1.7 days. So bottom line is, as you can see here in this shop that we're using as an example, the average vehicle sits for a day and a half to 2 days before the technician even got the vehicle to begin to work on it. Now, if we go and we look at the repair cycle portion of this on a category 3, 2.6 days. From the time the vehicle arrived until the technician started on it was 2.6 days. I think we all would agree there's a lot of room for improvement there. So what we did is we then went back and we ran the cycle time load level report, and we ran it in what's called the detail summary. As we ran this cycle time load level report, we started to look at some of the category 1s, 2s, and 3s. And we saw that on a category 3 medium load level total, we saw that one of the jobs sat there for 12 days before we even started on it. So as we began to look at some of these cycle times for the pre-repair, and here's another example, for a heavy, we saw that some of these jobs sat for 6 days before we started on it, another one for 5 days, another one for 5 days. We realized that what was really killing our cycle time was not how long it took the technicians to fix the vehicle, but how long it actually took the admin staff to process the vehicle and get it into the flow line for the technician to start on. So we recognized there was a lot of opportunity for the pre-repair portion of the cycle time. And we realized that when we drilled down into these, that the reason these vehicles all sat for 5 days and 6 days was because we could not get to the vehicles in a timely manner because we had too much work coming in on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So, how does scheduling fix all this? Well, there are basically 3 ways you can schedule a vehicle. The first we're going to share with you is the most basic method. And while it is the most basic and it is the easiest to implement, I will also tell you that it is probably the least effective. So what do we do by that? Well, let's say that your goal is to do $200,000 a month in sales. And let's say that your average RO is $2,000. That means that you need to do 100 cars a month at a $2,000 average RO to hit your desired sales goal of $200,000. Now, if we know there's 20 working days in a month, then that means basically we need to bring in 5 cars a day and we need to deliver 5 cars a day. Now, again, this is the least effective method of scheduling, but if you're not doing any scheduling at all, this would be a very easy way to start scheduling. So what would that look like? Well, maybe you would bring in 5 cars on Monday, 5 on Tuesday, 5 on Wednesday, 5 Thursday, and 5 on Friday. Now, the key is to bring these vehicles in at a designated time. So you see on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we bring one vehicle in from 8 to 9, another one from 9 to 10, 10 to 11, and so on and so on. The key is consistency. So again, if you're not doing any scheduling at all, a very basic step would be that when you leave out of you go back to your shops after watching this webinar, this session, go back and just attempt to figure out what your sales are a month. Divide that by your average RO. That will tell you how many cars you want to do a month. And then divide that by how many working days are in a month. And that's how many cars you should bring in Monday through Friday. Now, again, why is that maybe not always the best way to do it? Because you might bring in 5 train wrecks one day and you might have 5 just bumper jobs the next, and that's not going to help you hit your sales goal. But again, that's better than no scheduling at all, and at least will take you a baby step towards implementing improved scheduling to improve your cycle time to improve your sales. Now, the second method I'm going to show you for scheduling is an advanced method. This is a method that above all the other methods, this is the method that I think works the best, that I've implemented with tons of my clients across the United States and Canada. So, what do we call this method? We call it the advanced scheduling method. So the first thing we do is we review your data for your best months in sales. So we go back and look at your sales over a 12-month period, and we figure out what was the best month you had in sales. Once we know what your best month in sales was, we then determine the categories of jobs that you did in that given month. How many category 1s, category 2s, category 3s, category 4s, and category 5s. And then we figure out how many of each of those categories do we need in that month to hit our desired sales numbers. And then we break that down by how many do we need to do a day. And last but not least, we create a visual system. So again, 5 steps to implementing an awesome scheduling system. Number 1, review data on the best months. Number 2, determine the categories of work for each day. And then we create a visual system. So let's jump into this and look at this. So what I did was I had a shop that I was working with in New York. This shop implemented ProfitNet and installed ProfitNet in June. So in June of 2014, we only had a partial month's worth of data. So what we did is we went and we looked at their data for a rolling 12-month sales history. And we saw that in July, they did $442,454 in sales. And we saw what they did in sales for August, September, October, November, and December. And we said, okay, what month did they have their best month in sales? Well, obviously, you can see in October, they did $503,000. So what we did is, if you're using ProfitNet, run a market analysis key performance indicator report, or a market analysis KPI report. This again will be under the financial report section of ProfitNet. Then take the month that you had your best sales numbers, whatever you did your best month of sales. What we then did is after we found that month, we said, okay, let's look at some data on that. Now again, let me walk you through on how to run this report. You're going to go to the Financial tab in ProfitNet under the Reports section. You are going to select where it says Market Analysis KPI Report. It's going to automatically pop up and it will say select a starting month. I encourage you just to let that autofill that, and basically it should select the month that you're in for the previous year. Then you're going to hit OK. Now, when it comes up and it says facility square footage, market vehicles repaired, number of registered vehicles, don't even worry about that. Just click OK. And now you'll see what the report looks like. So it shows me that in October of 2014, this shop had their best sales month for the past 6 months. Now, one important thing is make sure you exclude sales tax when you run this report. You do not want sales tax in your report. So now we go to where it says October 2014. What I need to determine now is what was my optimal sales mix that I had that month in order to accomplish that sales goal of $500,000 for the month of October. So what we need to do next is we need to run the cycle time arrival versus delivery report. And we're going to look at it for the data for the best month that we had, which in this case was October of 2014. Now, again, we will add additional filter conditions because we want to filter out any job less than, say, $250 if you're doing a lot of oil changes or mechanical work or internal stuff or maybe PDR work. So what happens now is we go into the financial section of ProfitNet, and what we will do is we will select the cycle time arrival versus delivery report. Once we select that, I will run it for the delivered date range range for the month that I had my best month. Now, if you remember, when I ran the market analysis KPI report, it told me that that was for the month of October 2014. So in this case, I would go to my delivered date and I would put in that specific month's dates, October 1st, 2014 to October 31st, 2014. Once I select that, what it now does is it gives me my cycle time arrival versus delivery report. And it shows me how many categories, how many of each job I brought in of each category, Sunday through Saturday, and how many I delivered. Now, obviously, this shop was not open on Sundays, but there was some night drops, and that's why you show that it shows that they had some vehicles come in on a Sunday because they were night drops. But what I do is I want to focus not on how many vehicles I brought in that month, but I want to focus on how many vehicles I delivered. So by taking this data and analyzing it and compiling it together, we saw that with this shop here, they delivered 48 category ones. Again, keeping in mind a category one is an ultralight, a category two is a light, category three is a medium, and so forth. So we saw that in order for them to hit $500,000 in sales, they need to deliver 48 category ones, 24 category twos, 22 category threes, 17 category fours, and 119 category fives. Now, when we first looked at this data, we said, wow, there's no way this shop is doing that many category fives. And what we saw was that where their labor load level hours were set up within ProfitNet, which is the data that gives us all of these individual categories, was set up improperly. And we'll talk about that in a moment about how to set those up. But what we did is once we saw this is how many category ones, twos, threes, fours, and fives they delivered over the course of a month, we need to figure out how do we plot this out for consistent scheduling. Okay, step two. So we need to define your repair categories or your severity categories. So what we did was, again, stepping back a little bit, we took our best sales month in the past 6 months, which was October of 2014. We determined that that month was $504,000. After that, we determined how many vehicles did we deliver for that given month. And of the vehicles we delivered, how many of those vehicles were categories ones, twos, threes, fours, or fives. Now, before you start asking me what is a category 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5, let me share with you. It has been my experience that the average shop, a category 1, will be a vehicle that has 8 hours or less of labor. Again, that is all encompassing. That includes body labor, paint, frame, mechanical, aluminum, whatever the case may be. A category 2 is going to be from 8.1 to 16 hours. A category 3 is 16.1 to 32 hours. A category 4 is 32.1 to 56 hours. And a category 5 is 56 hours or more. Now, it's important that you understand that we do not have to agree on what makes up each category. I will tell you that shops that do a lot of aluminum vehicles tend to see these categories increase by almost 27 to 32%. A shop that's doing a lot of non-drives, meaning like they're a Geico non-drive DRP, they may see some fluctuation in these hours as well. So understand this is just an average, and this also includes your paint labor hours, your body labor hours, mechanical and structural and aluminum, etc. So that's all encompassing. Now, how do you set this up in ProfitNet? Well, first of all, when you go into ProfitNet, you're going to go into settings. When you go into settings, you're going to go into where it says set up load levels. Now, this is going to be under your production management scheduling. So again, go into scheduling, go into where it says production management, and then you're going to go to where it says set up load levels. You also notice over to the right, it says labor to schedule with daily job scheduling, and it says all departments. It's important you make sure you check that box to make sure it doesn't just include body or frame, and it includes all departments. Once I select the set up load levels, you will now see that it is color coordinated in ProfitNet. And it allows me to put in here what hours I want each category to be. So for example, an ultralight could be 0 to 8 hours, a light is 8 to 15, etc., etc. Now when you look at this screenshot, you'll notice that this screenshot does not match up to the labor hours that I suggest that you have in your facility. Because what we're showing you right now is the ProfitNet default under this labor load leveling scheduling. So it's important you go into ProfitNet and you would go in there and you would change this to what we're recommending that your scheduling severity category should be by hours. Now, if you go into your ProfitNet and it does not look like this right here, it means you're running an older version. So what you need to do is get with Yada Systems and download the most recent version of ProfitNet, and it will allow you to schedule your ROs by category. So again, go into this, ultralight, light, medium, heavy, ultra heavy, and you're going to see these hours right here, and we're encouraging you to change those hours to what we recommended in the previous slide. You can, once you go through and you determine how many of each category you want to take in every day, you can now put in there max arrivals per day. So let's say, for example, that I know, and I'm going to go back a screen, and I know that based on data that I took in 48 ultralights is what I delivered in my best month. And if I know I have 20 working days in a month, I'm going to take 48 divided by 20 working days is roughly 2 category 1s every day. But then because that's only going to give me 40 and now I have 8, I know that I need to have 2 additional category 1s on other days. And we'll cover that in just a moment. But bottom line is you can figure out what you want your maximum hours to be for each category, then go into ProfitNet, go into set up load levels, and then you're going to set it up by how many of those you want for each individual day. Now, where do I get these categories from? Well, first of all, I know that the average RO is 19 to 24 hours, depending on the state. This includes all labor hours, body, frame, mechanical, and refinish. So therefore, if the average RO is 19 to 24 hours, then that should be our average job, which is a medium or a category 3. Now, where did I get this data from? Well, for example, Auditex, every year, they publish what the average labor hours are per state. So let's say if we looked at the state of New York, you will see that the average labor hours for the state of New York for body and paint together are 26.8. Now, some of you may be looking and say, well, Mike, for body it says 15.9 and paint says 9.2, and that doesn't equal 26.8. It's because the 26.8 includes any structural or mechanical labor as well. So if I know that the average labor hours for the average body shop estimate in the state of New York is 26.8 hours, then that's what my category 3 should be. Another source that we got the data from was CCC. In CCC's data that they release yearly, it showed us that in 2013, the average labor hours per RO was 22.5. We saw that for the state of New York, the average labor hours was 25.5. So understand that when I go and I pick what the average labor hours are for scheduling, I don't just pull a number out of the sky. I base it off of statistical data that is provided by Enterprise, Mitchell, CCC, and Auditex. And that's how I determine what my category 3 is going to be. Now, if you don't have access to some of that data, but you do use Enterprise and you utilize the Enterprise ARMS report, you can actually make a special request to Enterprise and you can ask them if they can give you your labor hour breakdown for vehicles that you receive and deliver monthly. So this is a shop that I was working with, and what we did was we found out that through Enterprise that 33.9% of all the vehicles they fix each month have between 1 to 15 hours. 27% of their vehicles that they fix each month or actually have 15 to 25 hours, and so forth and so forth. So again, if you don't have access to data from CCC Mitchell Auditex through their State of the Industry reports, you can always reach out to Enterprise and say, can you tell me on statistical data what percentage of my ROs are categories 1s, 2, 3s, 4s, or 5s? They can give you that information and you can use that to determine your best scheduling for your facility. You will also be able to see what the average labor hours were per RO. So the average labor hours for category 1 was almost 9 hours for this shop, category 2, 19.78, and so on and so on. Now again, it's important that you understand that we do not have to agree on all the category sizes. All that's important is for that everybody in your repair facility to agree on the categories. Also, the best way to do that is an estimate calibration exercise with your staff. So for example, a lot of times people will say, well, Mike, what happens when somebody comes in and they don't have an insurance estimate for me to gauge it off of hours? Well, what you can do is do an estimate calibration exercise and say, okay, let's look at some estimates where we replaced just a bumper and a fender. That bumper cover and that fender probably was going to be 16 hours. Let's look at an estimate where we replaced a door or a quarter panel and figure out how many average labor hours are on that, and that'll help you to determine that. Now keep in mind, it's really important that your hours include all hours, body, paint, frame, and mechanical, and don't forget to set that up if you use ProfitNet as your management system. Now, some people ask me, Mike, why do you schedule hours versus dollars? Well, dollars can place a job in the wrong category. You know, you can be working on a Porsche where the headlight is $4,000, and all of a sudden now that puts it into a category 5. Well, it gets as a headlight and a bumper cover. That's certainly not a category 5. So I try to avoid scheduling by dollars, and I like to schedule by hours. Again, adjust the categories to your needs, and it's just important that you and I don't agree, but what's important is that everyone in your repair center agrees on what hours make up a category. Step 3 is we need to assign a color to identify each category. So again, if you're not using ProfitNet as a management system, it's important that you understand you need to assign a color to each category. And this is very important for when we go to try to pull work in, because our goal is to have a pull production system, not a push production. So it's important for us to do is that we actually take and pull work in, and we need to set up visual controls. It's very easy for someone like a CSR to determine which vehicle is a certain category if we need to bring those in to fill a schedule. Define your perfect work mix for the month. So what we needed to do was, at this shop we were working with in New York, we found out that they did 48 category 1s is what they delivered in the month of October to be successful, 24 category 2s, 22 category 3s, 17 category 4s, and 119 category 5s. And this was based on past history. So what we did was we said, okay, we need to now take this out and plot this out for how many working days are in a month. Now, every month has different working days. Here's a hyperlink that you could actually write down for our website that will show you how many working days are in a month. The average month has 20 working days, but you will see, for example, in 2015 of this year, February had 19, March had 22, April had 22 working days, and depending on holiday schedules with Christmas and New Year's and Thanksgiving, you could also have less working days. But bottom line is you're scheduling and how many vehicles you're going to take in each individual day, Monday through Friday or Monday through Saturday, if you're open Saturdays, is going to vary on how many working days you have. But let's just say, for example, a vehicle has 20 working days in a month. Then what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, well, we had 48 category 1s that we delivered in the month of October. If there's 20 working days in a month, then I need to bring in 2.4 category 1s every day. If I have 24 category 2s that I delivered to be successful in the month of October, there's 20 working days in a month, then I need to schedule in 1.2 category 2s every day, 1.1 category 3s every day, less than 1 category 4, and 5.95 category 5s. Now, many of you might say, well, Mike, how do you schedule in 0.1 of a car or 0.4 of a car? What you're going to do is you're going to round that off, and that means that you won't necessarily take in that many cars every day. So what would that look like? Well, let me show you what that would look like. So on a Monday, we would take in 2 category 1s, 1 category 2, 1 category 3, 1 category 4, and 6 category 5s. However, you'll see on a Tuesday, we're going to take in 3 category 1s, 1 category 2, 1 category 3, 1 category 4, and 6 category 5s. Then Wednesday, we're only going to take in 2. So bottom line is, as you can see here, because we have these averages, going back a slide, you'll see that we only have like a half or less than 1. For example, what we're going to do is we're going to take and round that off, or we just don't take in that same amount of units every day, and we'll alternate days. Now, a lot of times what people do is they start talking themselves out of how this won't work before they even try it. Because I'm confident that some of you are listening in on this webinar and you're saying, you know what about toe-ins? You're right, what about toe-ins? Well, what we need to do is look at statistical data, and we know that during the winter we're probably going to have a lot more toe-ins than what we have in a summer month. So let's determine the average number of toe-ins we have each week. And we know that toe-ins are generally be a category 4, category 5 job. So what we want to do is just leave spaces on your schedules for these jobs. So that means instead of taking in 6 category 5s, if I know I get an average of 3 category 5s every week to get towed in, then I'm just going to leave a space open. I'm not going to max out my scheduling every day, and I'll leave that spots open. So let's say that I know that I get an average of 3 cars towed in every day. Then what I'm going to do is I'm not going to take in 6 category 5s every day. I'm going to take in 3 category 5s, and I'm going to leave 3 category 5s open for unexpected things like tow-ins. However, the key here is to be proactive. If I know by 11 o'clock I haven't had any vehicles get towed into my shop, then I need to have my CSR go look at my scheduling system and find some cars that we have scheduled out and bring those cars in real time to fill those empty slots. So it's really important that the back-end estimator as well as the CSR communicate with each other so that they can pull work in when we don't have these tow-ins or DRP assignments show up. So the key is to be proactive. and show up. So the key is to be proactive. I then have people say, well, Mike, what about a DRP? Mike, I'm a Geico ARX and I get 6 a day. And if I schedule all my cars in every day to max capacity and then I get 6 DRP assignments, well, now I've got too much work. You're absolutely right. So what you need to do is determine on average about how many of those DRP jobs you get in a day from that insurance carrier, State Farm, Geico, USA, whatever the case may be. And then just leave slots open on your schedule. Because remember, if you book your every day to max capacity, and anything comes in as a tow-in job, or you write that really awesome cash estimate you want to capture, or we get a vehicle comes in as a DRP, if we already scheduled a max capacity, now we're going to be in trouble and we're going to be over. But have a deadline in mind that says, look, if we don't have cars towed in or no DRPs coming in by this time, then what we need to do is we need to take and call customers and bring customers in earlier, because you want to bring the work in before you run out. Some other additional scheduling considerations. What if I can't see the vehicle? One of the things I would encourage you to do is have the consumer or the customer send you a text or an email with photos of the vehicle. And then you can schedule it based on the damage that's visible. One guy that's been really, really good with this is Bob McSherry at North Haven Auto Body in Connecticut. So again, maybe you're a DRP shop and the customer calls and says, I need to bring my vehicle in for ABC Insurance Company. We'll ask them to send you a text or an email with the photos of the vehicle. And generally you look at a bumper job and you know that a bumper cover is going to be 3 hours to overhaul it, 3 hours to paint it, that's 6 hours. You automatically know that's a category 1. Let's say it gets a bumper cover and a fender, and you know that to put the fender on is 3 hours and 3 hours to paint it, and then we got to blend the door, and you know that's going to be a category 2. So I think it's very easy for you to be able to do that when they actually text you or email you the vehicle's pictures. Now, so what would that look like if we were going to take and block off some times or some slots for these unexpecteds like those DRPs or tow-ins? Well, what we're going to do is we're actually going to take, and let's just say, for example, that we wanted to take in 6 category 5s a day, 1 cat 1, 1 cat 2. Well, I'm not going to max off all my cat 5s every day and take in 6. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave 3 openings on every day for any unexpecteds, for the DRPs, tow-ins, etc. Now, again, don't get sucked into the number 3. I'm just using that for illustration purposes. If you know that you generally get 8 a day from a Geico ARX, then what you're going to do is you're going to block off 8 a day. But the key is, if I block these appointments off and I do not get a car towed in by 11 o'clock, or I get with my Geico appraiser early in the morning and say, how many do you have coming in today? And they say, I only have 2. Then we need to get a CSR on the phone, and that CSR needs to start pulling vehicles in by the design categories we need to fill those slots. So make sure, again, it's very important. You don't want to fill up to max capacity every day, and then when you get a tow-in or a DRP, now you're over capacity. That will screw up your scheduling. So what we need to do is we need to take and block off for those unexpectancies, and then if those vehicles don't come in by 11 o'clock, then what we do is we have the CSR get on the phone and pull vehicles in real time. Now, here's another story people tell themselves. I know what some of you are doing right now. You're listening to this webinar and you're saying, I can't get people to bring in on Thursdays and Fridays. Insurance companies won't pay for rentals over the weekend, whatever the case may be. Stop it. Quit telling yourself that. Now, I understand that Thursdays and Fridays are more difficult to schedule people on, and some people have said, well, you know what, Mike, only 25% of the people will schedule on a Thursday or Friday. Well, let me just share a story with you that I learned from a guy named Aaron Marshall. Now, Aaron Marshall is one of the smartest guys I've ever met in this industry. Matter of fact, I tell people often, if I had to pick the 3 smartest people I ever met on one hand in this industry, Aaron Marshall would be on one of those 3 fingers. One of the things Aaron Marshall taught me was to backfill your schedule on Thursdays and Fridays. So what I mean by that is that, let's say we're going to take in 5 cars a day. I take in 5 on Monday, 5 Tuesday, 5 Wednesday, 5 Thursday, 5 Friday. That's 25 cars a week. Well, if I fill up Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday with the first 15 cars, 5, 5, and 5, I now only have 10 people to try to convince to schedule on a Thursday and Friday. But what would have happened if that very first person that called me on Monday, I would have tried to fill them in on a Thursday or Friday? Well, what would have happened is I now have a pool of 25 people to try to pick from to convince to schedule in on a Thursday or Friday. So again, fill up your Thursdays and Fridays first, and that increases your odds. So what might it look like? Well, first of all, here's what happens. Maybe what I would do is I'd schedule somebody in on a Monday, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, I filled up my Monday, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Filled up my Tuesday, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Filled up my Wednesday. And now the next person calls. I was like, Mrs. Jones, our next appointment's on Thursday. And she says, oh, Thursday doesn't work for me. So what do? Boom. We schedule extra cars in on Monday and Tuesday. And what we did is we just destroyed our schedule. We said our goal was to schedule 5 people per day. day, but when we couldn't get those people to schedule on a Thursday, what do? Boom. We take them, we schedule them on a Monday, and we start double booking, and we just destroyed the schedule. Ladies and gentlemen, I have to ask you, if you're attending this seminar right now, this webinar, how many of you have done that? And it blows up our schedule, because what we did is we filled up Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and then when they said they couldn't do Thursday, we go in and we schedule them on a Monday, and we just destroyed our schedule. So that's not good. Here's what we need to do instead. Somebody calls and we say, Miss Jones, my next appointment's Thursday. Well, you know what? Thursday doesn't work for me. All right, I'll take a couple cars in on Monday. But now I ask the X person that calls, I ask them, here when I can get you in is on a Thursday or Friday. Boom, we get a couple in on Thursday. Then somebody else calls. All right, we get a couple more on Monday. Somebody else calls. Now we get a couple in on Friday. I'm sure you're getting the idea of this now. Backfill Thursdays and Fridays first. Now, some of you will tell me, well, Mike, what happens if the insurance company won't pay for rental over the weekend? We're going to discuss that in just a moment. Remember this, if you backfill Thursday and Friday first, you have more odds in your favor of people to schedule on that Thursday and Friday than if you fill Monday through Wednesday and then you have limited amount of people to choose for that Thursday or Friday. So, what can you do? Well, one of the first things I would suggest is put a little notice on your calendar that says, ask us about our Thursday and Friday drop-off specials. This is something I've done with a lot of clients I work with, and we'll put, ask us about our Thursday and Friday drop-off specials. And what happens is people say, hey, what's this about a Thursday and Friday drop-off special? Well, Mr. or Mrs. Jones, if you bring your car in on a Thursday or Friday, we give you a free $10 Starbucks card, or we give you a free $25 gas card, or you get a free detail, or free 15-point inspection. Bottom line is we all have something we can offer the consumer to try to get people to schedule it on Thursday and Friday. And you'd be surprised at how many people will tell you, you know what, I don't even need my car. I have an extra car at home, and they actually make our job easier for us. I found that most people that put a little display on their counter like this actually have no problems filling their Thursday and Fridays up. Okay, additional scheduling considerations. What about those rental cars? I know there's people right now that are watching this webinar and you're listening in and you're saying, you know what, Mike, that insurance company won't let me take cars in on Thursdays and Fridays. They don't pay for rentals over the weekends. Well, I agree with that. Been there, done that. But a couple things for you. First of all is realize that when you're trying to backfill Thursdays and Fridays, you might find that a lot of people have a second car and don't even need a rental car over the weekend. Secondly is try to negotiate a weekend rental rate with your rental car companies. I have a specific rental car carrier I worked with recently at a shop in North Carolina. And what happened was we went to them and said, look, you have all these cars sitting on Saturdays and Sundays not being rented at all. Why don't you work with me and give me a discounted rate? And what they did is they agreed to rent the car to us for $9 a day. So we were able to get a discounted rate for that for customers. Also consider some concierge services. Maybe you offer to give somebody a ride home. I'll give you another example. I had a shop that I was dealing with in North Carolina, and they had a specific insurance company that was called Nationwide. And Nationwide actually said, you know what, we won't pay for rentals over the weekend. Well, they were a DRP for Nationwide. So I went to Nationwide and I said, look, I know you don't want to take cars on weekends, you don't want to pay for rental. How about if the shop agrees to pay for the rental cars over the next 30 to 45 days, and if our cycle time improves, then you agree to pay for rentals then. After about 2 weeks, Nationwide came back to us in this local area and said, you know what, your cycle time is off the hook. You've knocked 4 days off your cycle time. We will pay for cars over the weekend. So, you know, remember this. Sometimes we have to challenge people. There's laws and there's rules. Laws are meant to be abided by. Rules can be changed or broken. So again, I would say don't use rental car rates over the weekend. Don't use that as an excuse. If you actually can pay for the rental initially out of pocket, to prove this to an insurance carrier, you'll tend to, most insurance companies will say, I don't care when you bring the car in. Now, what about bringing vehicles in at specific drop-off times? So if you're going to take in 5 cars a day, or let's say that you have 2 teams you're running your shop, and each team is going to get 4 cars a day, consider alternating the times your cars come in at. So maybe you bring a car in for the first team from 8 to 9 a.m., and the next car comes in at 9, and the next team gets theirs from 9 to 10. First of all, what you do is when you break this down, it's more palatable. It also allows the estimators, if you're running 2 teams on a larger volume shop, it allows them, if my first vehicle comes at 8, I have 8 to 9 to write my estimate or something on that vehicle. My next vehicle doesn't come into 10. Even if I run over, I still had 2 hours. So really, I'd encourage you to try to schedule your vehicles in for specific drop-off appointment times. It also allows time at the end of the day for any loose ends, phone calls, or unexpectancies that occur. So what is the biggest obstacle to scheduling? I got to tell you, the biggest problem is you. Yes, you. I find that the biggest challenge to scheduling is owners and friends of the owners. What happens is you're an owner, you're a manager, and you tell your staff, look, we're going to take in 5 cars every day, 5 cars Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And what happens is your staff holds the line and they tell that customer, I can't take you in until Thursday. And the next thing they do is they say, well, can I talk to Joe? Is Joe around? And then what happens is when we go ahead and we get in touch with Joe, and Joe's the owner or the manager, they say, hey, Joe, old buddy, old friend, old pal, you know, your CSR says you can't get me until Thursday, man. I really need my car sooner. Can you help me out? And what happens is the owner says, go ahead and bring it in on Monday. And what you just did is you blew up your schedule. So I got to tell you right now, the biggest obstacle to scheduling is not customers. It's not insurance companies that won't pay for rentals over the weekend. The biggest problem with scheduling is owners and friends of the owners. So again, I got to tell you, if you're the owner, the manager, or friend of an owner manager, you just got to say no. Now, the next thing with scheduling is once we determine how many cars of each specific type, how many categories, 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s we need, and how many working days in a month, the next thing is we need to create a visual system. And that is we need to create a system that will make it very easy for us to pull work in real time if we start running ahead of schedule or if we don't have those unexpected DRP drop-off or tow-ins come in. We got to fill those voids by 11 or 12 o'clock. So there's 3 ways to do that. Number 1 is you can take and create an RO file rack system using bins. Number 2 is a magnetic scheduling board, which you can purchase from Axalta or make your own. And number 3 is using the work planner feature in ProfitNet. So number 1 is, if you're going to use bins, hang bins on the walls. Now, I understand a lot of people don't like bins on their walls. They feel it looks kind of cluttery. But I got to tell you, most of the shops that fight me on this, once we put it up, they're raving fans. And you're going to hang a bin rack, and you're going to have a column for each day of the week. So bottom line is, if you're going to be open Monday through Friday, you're going to have 5 cars in that row for that week. If you're open on Saturdays, then you would obviously have 6 bins for that week. Then you have the second week and the third week. Now, if you're a shop that only usually has about a week or 2 week backlog, then all you need really is 2 rows of bins for your folders, first week and next week's work that's coming in. And then you can just have a single bin that says any work past 3 weeks. Let's say, for example, though, you're in an area where you get a hailstorm or a massive snowstorm and you're worked out for 5 or 6 weeks, then you may end up needing 4 or 5 rows of racks. The importance is, number 1, is to have a bin for each specific day. And you'll put the calendar day in there, like, you know, January 1st, January 2nd, January 3rd. You need to have enough slots for all your job categories. So if you get a real skinny bin and you're a large shop doing $1 million a month, well, you know you're taking in more than 5 to 8 cars a day, you need a pretty big wide bin. You also want to make sure that you use color-coded stickers or color-coded dots on each folder, because I believe in being paperless. So I don't want to have any paper in my folders. The folder is just a visual control for jobs that are coming in. And what I'll do is I'll print the RO tag out of ProfitNet, a little sticker out of my Dyno label printer. I'll put it on the folder, and then I'll put a little colored dot that says this is a category 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, and then I can just reuse those folders. Again, we are paperless. We're scanning everything. These folders are just a visual control system. Now, again, it's important you assign a dot to each color RO, right? So again, a category 1, which is an ultralight, 0 to 8 hours, that might have a blue dot. Maybe we use a green dot for a category 2, yellow dot for category 3, and I think you're starting to get the sense of what I'm speaking of now. So what happens is when I go to put the bins on the walls, I'll actually take and I'll say, okay, on December 25th, you'll see the 25 there, or let's say January 25th, I have a yellow dot, and yellow means that's a category 3. So again, when I'm actually catching up on work or those unexpected tow-ins didn't show up, I'm going to go to my CSR and say, look, we need a category 3 in. All she's doing is going looking for a category 3, which has a yellow dot, and she's going to pull that vehicle in real time. So again, the purpose of the dots in the folders is to make it easy for somebody in the office staff to pull a specific type of job in when we need it in real time. Here's an example of some other folders in a shop that I worked with in Hawaii. And again, you can see they use really nice laminate cards to label everything. You also see they have a no-show bin. That is, any customers that don't show up for their scheduled appointment, go to the no-show bin, and that's a visual control that somebody needs to call them and say, when are you bringing your vehicle in? Now, again, you see here, some people will go the extra mile and they'll put in like Tuesday, and then you'll see like the number 6 is for the 6th calendar day. Again, these can all be laminated, and that way your bins every month has a different amount of working days in it, and you can just move these around as you need to. Again, just some more visual controls that we're using. You'll see in the category where it says order parts on the one picture on your left-hand side of your screen. That's because if we are going to pre-order parts and we have a 4 to 5 week backlog or 2 week backlog, we're not going to pre-order parts until the folder actually hits that week, and that's 2 weeks before the vehicles are ready to come in. That's the point when we'll pre-order parts. So again, just a visual reminder system. So again, flipping through these screens pretty quickly, you can see there's a lot of folders here as far as what we're doing. Now, the second option is to use a visual system that's using a magnetic scheduling board. You can contact your local Axalta representative. Axalta has these boards that are made. They actually have a column for each day of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Saturday. You can also have it for 4 to 5 weeks, depending on which month you're in. There are 4 times a year, and we have 5 working weeks in a month. And bottom line, the way this works is we have a different color magnet for each category. So a category 1 in this case might be a purple magnet. Category 2 is a green. Category 5 is a yellow. And you predetermine how many of each category you want for each day. And what you do is you'll hang this magnetic board. And what you'll do is you'll just write on here with a dry erase marker, and you can fill in these jobs for your scheduling if you don't want to use the bins. Okay, and option 3 is to use ProfitNet to create a visual scheduling system. What you can do is you can go into ProfitNet, back into the scheduling and settings, and go to set up load levels. When you go into that category, you'll see that you can set up how many of each category you'd like to take for your categories 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s. And as you go in there, you put your max arrivals per day. Now keep in mind, I'm going to use my cycle time arrival versus delivery report to give me how many vehicles I delivered in my optimal month. And then what I'm going to do is I will take those hours, and then once I get those categories, I will then plot them out over how many working days are in a month. For example, 20 working days or 22 working days. One little tidbit of information. If you go and you change your labor hours and you go and run the report for a previous month, it will not go back and recategorize those into the proper month. So what you would have to do is you would have to wait for the next 30 days to get accurate data. Once we do that, we can now start to track our arrivals versus deliveries. Okay, step 7 continued, creating a visual scheduling system. Once we take and we've plotted out our jobs as far as how many of each category we want to take on each individual working day, we need to monitor this. So if we go into ProfitNet and we select the dashboard feature, we can see at the bottom of the dashboard, we can now start to track our arrivals versus deliveries per day. If you look in the middle of the screen at the very bottom, you'll see where it says arrivals and deliveries per day, and you will see that the orange is the arrivals and the green is the deliveries. Obviously, we're looking for consistency with one line on top of the other. So here we can start to monitor to see if our scheduling is really working. Again, don't give up on the system until you've given it a chance. It may take 45 to 60 days to flush out all of your existing work before you really start to see the benefits of scheduling. So don't have a knee-jerk reaction when you still have some things that are within the system we need to flush out. So again, focus on the arrivals and deliveries per day. The other thing on the dashboard you want to look at is your load level cycle time breakdown. As I start to look at my cycle time, I hopefully will start to see the green area start to increase and the orange areas decrease. As the orange areas start to decrease, especially on the pre-repair and the post-repair, then we know that our scheduling is starting to work. And last but not least, monitor through the ProfitNet dashboard your load level cycle time breakdown on severity. And we'll start to monitor how many of each type of job we're getting. Category 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, or 5s. I would also encourage you that after you've set your labor hours up within ProfitNet through the scheduling setup, I would encourage you after 90 days to go back and look at your cycle time arrival versus delivery report over a 90-day period and then take an aggregate average for how many vehicles you delivered to create your optimal scheduling. Now again, in ProfitNet, we can also go into a feature that's called Job Scheduling, which is where we can view our schedule ROs broken down by daily units. And we can also look at the capacity by shop and department per day. So if you're an MSO, ProfitNet now has an MSO dashboard you can look at. So if you want a labor load level between, you can see exactly how many vehicles are in each department, meaning body, paint, mechanical, whatever the case may be. And we can also use this to schedule ROs in, to bring vehicles in as vehicles are leaving our facility. Another great feature that I like in ProfitNet is in the newest version of ProfitNet, it actually has a dashboard screen that you can look at for job scheduling. And what it does is it will allow you to see what the maximum amount of each category is that you are allowing your shop to bring in on each specific day. So if I know that, for example, on Monday, February 9th, I only want to take in 3 category 1s, 2 category 2s, 2 category 3s, 4 category 4s, and no category 5s, I can now see what my availability is to bring a job in. I also have a filtering section or filtering feature on this area that will allow me to see when my next appointment is, for example, a Cat 1 or a Cat 3. Keep it in mind, my next appointment for a Cat 3 could be tomorrow, my next appointment for a Cat 5 might be next week. But bottom line is, it will also show me in purple when that day is maxed out for its capacity of scheduling. So if you look right here at the screen that you're seeing, where it says Thursday, February 12th, it says day is full. That means that the hours that I set up in my scheduling system to say this is the maximum amount of jobs I want to take in each day of each category, this notifies me that that day is completely full. So again, it's a very visual control. This is a new feature in ProfitNet. I would encourage you to contact somebody at Yada Systems and they can give you an overview of how this works. It can also tell you if you've overbooked by severity type. So if somebody has kind of blown up your schedule per se, that owner or manager, it will create awareness for you. Scheduling by technician efficiency is a very efficient and thorough way to schedule. However, you must first know each technician's efficiency. You will either have to manually track this, or if you're using a time clock feature in your management system, such as ProfitNet, you can actually track their efficiencies, how many hours a week they work versus how many hours they turn. Now, let's say that you have technician A who is 100% efficient. This means that that technician can complete 40 hours worth of work in a 40-hour work week. But let's assume that that technician has 20 hours of labor assigned to them. Well, if their goal is to be consistently at 40 hours every single week, and they're only at 20 hours, then they're at 50% capacity and they have a 50% fill rate. Let's look at technician B, who is 150% efficient. That means they can complete 60 hours of labor in a 40-hour work week. Let's say that technician B only has 20 hours of labor assigned to them, then they're at 33% capacity with a fill rate of 67%. And let's look at technician C, who's 200% efficient. That means they can complete 80 hours of labor in a 40-hour work week. But let's say currently they only have 20 hours assigned to them. That means they're only at 25% capacity, and they have a fill rate of 73%. Who should get the next job when you go to dispatch work? The correct answer is technician C. Because technician C is only at 25% capacity and they have a 73% fill rate, that means they need more work to get them up to their fullest capacity so they can continue to be productive for you and not stand around. If you're using ProfitNet, ProfitNet will allow you to track this through the employee flag sheet. If you're not using ProfitNet and you're using another management system, please contact us at Collision Advice and we will give you a spreadsheet that you can manually track this for. Now, again, if you're using ProfitNet, you can go into ProfitNet and you can go into where it says Set Up Technician Efficiency. What you will do is you select or click on that individual technician's name, and when you do that, you'll see the arrow that says Efficiency. You put in the technician's efficiency of 150%, and that tells me that in a 40-hour work week, I only want them to be at around 60 hours of labor. And what it does is it will keep you from not allowing you to dispatch or schedule more work in for that technician than what they can handle. Now, I will tell you it's okay to have about a 20% buffer. If a technician gets more than 20% of their capacity, they can come in early, stay late, and get out of that, that overload of labor pretty quickly. But if you have more than 20% of labor assigned to them, it's certainly going to affect your cycle time, and you'll see cars starting to sit. Now, what about if you can't find the data? So, Mike, I don't use ProfitNet, I use another management system. Well, you have a couple options. Number one is you can track it manually with something called the cycle time tracker. Or number two is you can contact Enterprise for your length of rental or LOR report. The cycle time tracker is a spreadsheet that was developed by Ron Pomato of Exalta Coding Systems. And in this cycle time tracker, shops can actually input their data on a daily basis of all the repair orders that they received that arrived at their facility, as well as any of the vehicles that they delivered. So what you can do is, as you enter these ROs in, you'll enter in the customer name, the RO, the type of vehicle, you'll put in how many labor hours were on the job, and basically it's self-explanatory. And And once you enter this information in, it will then allow you to see what your cycle time report looks like for the month or year to date. So it would show you, for example, that your pre-repair was 26% of your cycle time, your repair was 56%, or your post-repair was 17%. Or it'll allow you to look at the pre-repair, repair, and post-repair for each individual type of category, like a Cat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It also will show you how that equated to in days. So how many days, like 1.4 days for pre-repair, or 2 days, or whatever the case may be. You can also then drill down and you can print an arrival versus delivery report out of this Excel spreadsheet that shows you how many vehicles you're receiving on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, and how many you're delivering. And again, our goal is to have those lines overlapping each other. So again, if you're not using ProfitNet and you have a management system that does not allow you to track this data, you can manually track it in Excel. Now again, is that time consuming? Yes, it is. But again, if it was easy, everyone would do it. Another way to track your categories and what your optimal sales mix would be to contact Enterprise. Enterprise, upon special request, can give you data that will allow you to see how many repair orders you actually took into your facility and how many you delivered out of your facility, meaning when they got in a rental car, when they got out of a rental car, based on specific days of the month, such as Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Saturday. You'll see, for example, this is a 4-store MSO I work with, and you will see that they took in 0.68% of their jobs in on a Sunday. Again, that was for a period of a month, and that obviously was a night drop. We can also see that that shop took in 48% of their ROs in on a Monday. They took in 20% of their vehicles in on a Tuesday, 16% on a Wednesday, 7.64% on a Thursday, and 4% on a Friday. So this is that typical shop that loads all their vehicles up. They bring all those cars in, load up on Monday, a little less Tuesday, a little less Wednesday, a little less Thursday, and a little less Friday. However, let's look at Repair Center number 2. You'll see that they took in 0.16% of their vehicles in on a Sunday, which again was a night drop. But you'll see here, as opposed to the other shop that took in 48% of their ROs in on a Monday, this shop only took in 29% of their cars in on a Monday. They took in 23% of their cars in on a Tuesday, 17% in on Wednesday, 11% on a Thursday, and 10.52% in on a Friday. So as we start to look at that, we do see that the shops are consistently scheduling cars in Monday through Friday. Now, I just want to show you something here. This is some data that Enterprise gave us from last year. And what it does is it shows us what percentage of ROs are open by body shops on Mondays versus a Saturday, or in some cases even a Sunday for night drops. Now, many of you will look at this and say, well, Mike, the cycle time for a vehicle that came in on a Monday is 8.34 days. That's certainly better than the vehicles that came in on a Saturday. Yes, I would agree with you if you look at that on individual days. If we look at non-drives, you'll see that the cycle time on vehicles that came in on Monday was obviously better than cars that came in on a Friday. However, I want you to understand that this is looking at the length of rental for vehicles by individual day. When you look at individual day, of course, Monday is going to be better than a Friday or Saturday. But what we want to do is we want to look at the aggregate average for somebody that schedules consistent cars in every single day of the week. Okay, what I'd like to do now is share with you a case study that I recently did in conjunction with a major MSO I work with in Enterprise. One of the things we did was we took this 28-store MSO and we said, let's track what the length of rental is by repair facility, and let's see what majority of their vehicles arrive on a Monday. And we found the Repair Center 1 that 49% of all the vehicles they fixed in a given month arrived on a Monday, and their length of rental was 10.51 days. We saw the Repair Center 14 brought in 37% of their vehicles in on a Monday, and we saw that their length of rental was 8.26. So right there, we saw an improvement that the shops that had more consistent scheduling Monday through Friday that did not load up on a Monday actually had a repair time or length of rental of almost 2 days better. Now, some of you may argue and say, well, Mike, what about Repair Center 2 that brought in 46% of their cars in on a Monday with a length of rental of 8.78? And we look at Repair Center 15, who only brought in 36% of their cars in on Monday, and their length of rental was 15.1 days. Yes, I would argue that on some individual cases, I would agree with you that the length of rental is better for people that bring a lot of cars in on Monday. But that's on a case-by-case basis. What I'm going to encourage you to do is to be open-minded, and let's look at the statistics as an aggregate of 14 shops at a glance. So let's look at shops 1 through 14. When shops 1 through 14, they brought in 1,990 rentals in on a Monday. That means that was a 1,990 cars that got dropped off of their facilities that all came in on a Monday. We see that when these vehicles came in on a Monday, Monday that the average length of rental for these 14 shops combined was 10.36 days. However, if we look at repair centers 14 through 28 that took in 1,674 rentals or put people into shops on Mondays, their average length of rental was 9.15 days. So when we look at an aggregate of all the data, we will clearly see that when you look at 14 shops at a glance, the shops that took in the less amount of cars on a Monday and they spread it out Monday through Friday and they didn't load up on Monday definitely had almost a day to a day and a half better cycle time. Now, additional scheduling considerations. Number one is never exceed your capacity by more than 20% if you're going to schedule by technician efficiencies or hours. Again, if you know that somebody can produce 50 hours per day in your body shop, not an individual, but maybe a team of individuals, you never want to schedule more than 60 hours. Again, if you schedule 20% more, you can easily come in early, stay late, and get yourself out of that hole. When you start to go past that 20% buffer, you will see a huge impact in a negative way on your cycle time. Number two is understand that, again, if you're using ProfitNet, I would encourage you to attend a webinar with Yada Systems on how to use the scheduling button, and it allows you to break labor down per department. So if you are going to schedule and work off of labor and efficiencies, that you understand what your max capacity is per labor department, for example, body, refinish, detail, or mechanical. And you can also launch the labor entry from employee scheduling view to allow you to see for dispatching job who should get the next RO. Also, if you are going to schedule by labor and efficiencies, make sure the key is to, when you assign a technician a job, to assign their name to the labor. If you do not, it will give you a false sense of how much labor they have. The other condition you need to make sure that you do is that once that job is completed, ensure the technician is flagged. If not, again, it will give you false data and false readings for the scheduling of work as well as the dispatching of ROs. Again, if you're using ProfitNet, this would be an example of a screenshot that you might see for employee scheduling, where you actually assign the technician's name to a job, and it shows you how many hours have been assigned to them on that specific RO, as well as how many they've been flagged on and what their capacity or what they have left is. You can also go to the employee flag sheet, which you can set up. In this case, you can see where it says capacity for the technician is 60 hours. The technician has 97.3 hours assigned to them. They have been flagged on 68 hours of labor. Therefore, their capacity or their fill rate is 28.51 labor hours. Again, you can print the employee flag sheet. You can also monitor this on the screen to determine for dispatching who should get the next RO. Again, you can also run an employee performance report in ProfitNet, and it will also show you what each technician's efficiency is, as well as their productivity and their utilization. However, you need to remember junk in, junk out. If your employees are not clocking in and out on the jobs, or as well as clocking out when they go for a restroom break or a smoke break or a cell phone break, it's going to give you misleading data, and it'll be very difficult to schedule in an accurate manner if you're not having them clock in and clock out. Again, this is Mike Anderson from Collision Advice. I just want to say thank you for spending the past 70 minutes with us on this scheduling webinar that we've done. We really appreciate your time and your attention. And if you have any questions or anything we can help you with, we'd really like to encourage you to contact us. You can contact me at mike@collisionadvice.com, or there's my cell, 301-535-3333, or feel free to contact my assistant, Tiffany Driggers, tiffany@collisionadvice.com, with her cell, 703-898-0715. Again, if you have any questions, anything you disagree with, anything that maybe we haven't thought of in regards to scheduling, please feel free to share your thoughts and opinions with us, because it can only make us better. And we also encourage you to check out our website at www.collisionadvice.com, and please check out our free tools, forms, and links section. We have tons of things available for you to download for free. And again, thank you for visiting with Collision Advice.